Guys, so today I just wanted to add on to our last lesson a little bit, just a little bit, a couple of new things. So let me get WordPad opened up. Okay, I did not want to open up Microsoft Word, even though that came up with a flash. WordPad. There we go. WordPad. So what I wanted to introduce you to was the and or symbols. So when you have two ampersand symbols, that is the and symbol. The and conditional operator. This is the and conditional. Let me put the hyphen here so you guys don't get confused. And conditional operator. And also there is an or conditional operator, in which are like two big pipes. I think they call it pipes. And the key that you use is let's see, let's get the on-screen keyboard on here. The key that you use for these huge pipes is this one. You press shift and you see this backslash over here. You simply shift and click that. Bam. Okay, so this is the or conditional operator. And so the and conditional operator over here, all it essentially is saying, let's say A is a Boolean variable, or A is some sort of value or some condition or something, and then and B. This will return true only if, will return true only if A and B are both true. So this means that if A is not true, this returns false. If B is not true, it returns false. If A and B are not true, it returns false. The only condition in which that A and B will return true is if both A and B are true. In contrast, A or B will return true if either A or B is true. There's also this thing called exclusive OR we may get into later, but right now just concentrate on this. These are the main operators, of course including the ones that we talked about last time. So A or B will return true if either A or B is true. So that means that if A is true but B is false, it will still return true. If B is true and A is false, it'll still return true. If A and B are both true, it'll return true. If A and B are both false, it will return false. Okay. So let's see an example of this. Magnifier. There we go. I will just clean up what we did last time. Okay, so we still have that standard header with the iostream call and the using namespace std call. So then we start our method with int main. That's good. We need to add a return 0 over here for the ending. Okay, so we're going to add whatever we need in here, in this space. So let me start by introducing the AND operator. What's the best way to do this? Let me think. The best way to introduce this to you is we're going to put int num equals 9. If num is greater than 0 and num mod 3 equals 0, system, wait, sorry, I'm thinking Java. Out the variable num is positive and divisible by 3. Else if num is greater than 0, cout is positive but not divisible by 3. You guys will see what I'm doing in a second. Else cout variable else Okay, so what did we do here? This is a simple program. All we did was take int num equals 9 and if num is greater than 0 and num mod 3 equals 0, which means if num is divisible by 3, the variable num is positive and divisible by 3. So in order for this to be printed, the variable num is positive and divisible by 3, both num has to be both positive, the variable num has to be both positive, and it has to be divisible by 3. If one of these conditions isn't true, then it'll print out one of these other conditions instead. So if num greater than 0 is false, or if num mod 3 equals 0 is false, this entire statement is false. Okay, so for our number, it's both positive and divisible by 3. So we can expect our answer to print out the variable num is positive and divisible by 3. Wait. but we need to rebuild this. Build and run. And as you can see, the variable num is positive and divisible by 3. We got that answer. However, let's say that we were to change this to an input, say int num, and then we would do cout. A program could press enter an integer, and it could prompt the user to enter an integer, and from there we would get ndl c input num. Okay. So the user this time will provide input for num, and on that basis we can test these different conditions. So enter an integer, we're going to put 9 again, see what happens. The variable num is positive and divisible by 3, just like we expected. Now, if we were to put enter an integer, and let's say we get a -8, well, -8 isn't divisible by 3, right? So we'd put -8, the variable is negative and not divisible by 3. Okay, that makes sense. Enter an integer, let's say -9, this is negative and divisible by 3. The variable num is negative and divisible by 3. So our program works just as intended. But the main thing to note here is that if one of these conditions is false, this entire statement is false. That's the thing with the AND symbol, the double ampersand. If one of the conditions is false, the entire condition is false. Okay, so what if we change things up a little bit? Let's create a little bit of a different program. Say if num is less than 0, or, which is the double pipeline, num equals 0. Cout the number is less than or equal to 0. Else, we're just going to print the number is positive. Okay, so here's another simple program. This, we're using the OR operator, not the exclusive OR. We will talk about exclusive OR maybe later at a different tutorial. But this is the regular OR conditional operator, the 2 double pipelines, and if the variable num is less than 0 or equal to 0, the number is less than or equal to 0. That's what it prints out. This program will print out the number is less than or equal to 0 if the number is less than 0 or the number is equal to 0. Else, this program prints out the number is positive. So let's just build and run. Wait a second, what's going on? Oh, okay, here's a simple mistake. You should always check your code before you run it. Build and run. Bam. Okay, so enter an integer. So let's say we were to enter a number that was positive first. Let's just do 8. The number is positive. That makes sense. Otherwise, if we were to enter an integer, let's say -8, the number is less than or equal to 0. So our program performs just the way it should. Okay guys, so let's just recap a little bit. The AND conditional operator is with the double ampersand. A double ampersand B will return true only if A and B are both true, which means if A is false, if condition A is false, or if conditional B is false, or if both are false, this entire statement will be false. Both A and B have to be true in order for A double ampersand B, in order for this statement to be true. This is the OR conditional operator with the two double pipelines, and so A double pipeline B, A or B will return true if either A or B is true. So if A is true but B is not, the entire statement returns true. If B is true but A is not, the entire statement returns true. If A and B are true, the entire statement returns true. If both of them are false, it returns false. We can use something called um, we could use something called uh, hang on just a second. Checking the exact definition for what I wanted to say. Whatever. This tutorial isn't even by the textbook, so why should I look at it? Okay, so we could use something called, well, we don't need to know what it's called. There is a shorthand. It's called short circuiting. Yes. You could short circuit these evaluations. So if either A or B is false in this case, in the A and B statement, you know that it'll return false. Similarly, if either A or B is true in the statement, you'll know the entire statement returns true. That's called short circuiting. Just predicting, knowing it's true based on one or two variables being true or false. Anyways, thank you very much for this tutorial. I think that was a little longer than it was intended to be, but thank you very much. And please join me for my next one.